Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Marcus Womack, and I work at Axon, and it's great to be here at the inaugural Cloud Tech Summit with GeekWire, and we're excited at Axon to be sponsors of that. So I want to talk a little bit today about what it means to build a cloud of trust in public safety. And I'll take you through a little bit about where we've come as a company. But to start off, a little bit about Axon, who we are and what we do. So Axon, our mission is to protect life. Our goal is to build a network of devices and services that are purpose-built for law enforcement and public safety to protect life and to help create, offer officers in the field the ability to operate with confidence and action. And so our transformation as a company, I'm going to tell a little story about how we got the cloud. But first, sort of some background. The company started off as Taser International. And so how many have heard of a Taser before? So John and Todd asked me that I actually offer people to get tased. So if everybody line up over here to the right, everybody can leave today being tased. No, I'm just kidding. I have been tased. And I can tell you two things. One, it's effective, and two, it really hurts. So we started off as Taser, and that was almost 25 years ago. But as a company, we've gone through a pretty crazy transformation over the last 10 years. And the cloud has played a really substantial role in that. And so today I want to really talk through this in three parts. One, I'll tell you a little bit of the history of Taser, talk about what it is, what it does, then talk about roughly 4 challenges that we've faced as a company going through this transformation and the road ahead for us. So what's the background on how the Taser actually came about? Well, about 50 years ago, LBJ put forth a commission to study law enforcement, administration, and justice. It was a blue ribbon commission that was intended to sort of see what was driving a lot of civil unrest and societal distrust. There had been a number of high-profile incidents in around 1967 that really pushed forth this blue ribbon commission. So out of that commission came a report that basically there was no non-lethal weapon that was available to de-escalate violent situations in the same way that a gun was being used. And that caught the eye of a guy named Jack Cover. Jack was really intrigued by that study when he read it. And a little bit about Jack is that Jack is a nuclear physicist, doctorate. He was a World War II test pilot. And he was at the time working on the Apollo missions at NASA, and he thought, I gotta invest here. That I have some really incredible ideas, and so Jack's really initiated the initial concept and design of the Taser. And so he didn't make much traction. Fast forward to the early 90s, the founder of Taser, and now Axon, Rick Smith, our CEO, 2 of his friends were killed in a road rage incident down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he thought to himself, there has to be a better way. You don't see us walking around with swords on our hips today, and so there needs to be a better way to protect life. And that's the pursuit of the Taser came about. And what he found is that Jack was just 2 hours south in Tucson, Arizona, and focusing on actually had shelved the Taser technology. And so Rick and Jack got together and really dusted off this technology and ended up perfecting it and bringing it to the market. And that was formed in 1993. And so a little bit of history about the name of the Taser. It comes from the book Jack named it, Tom Swift and his Electric Rifle. And so that forms the basis of the Taser and the history of Taser. And as of this date, Taser has saved over 180,000 lives and reduced death or serious injury. But what's interesting about the Taser here today is it's just one component of a broader connected devices strategy for us as a company, and one that really started off this vision of protecting life in law enforcement. And so today we're protecting life in new ways. And so about 10 years ago, the Taser was well established within law enforcement, particularly here in the United States. and our customers started asking for video to capture the situational usage of the taser. And so we put a video camera at the base of the taser, and as a result of that, customers said, oh, we want to see more. And we want to see what led up to that incident and what happened after. And at the time, we were only capturing video when the weapon was armed and deployed and then turned off. And so that's what got us into body cameras about 10 years ago. And we're on our 5th generation body camera. And from this perspective, a body camera here, we're talking, think of a GoPro that's been purpose-built for law enforcement. So everything from wearability to how it's integrated and activated with the various sensors that you might find, whether it be sirens and lights and things like that within law enforcement. And so the proof of body cameras has been really strong. So complaints down by up to 93%, use of force down by 70%, guilty pleas up by 20%, and officers spending less time in court because the video provides an objective record of what happened at a given incident. And ultimately, it nets in for every dollar spent, there's $4 saved. And so we as a company right now, of the 65 major cities, are in 85% of those major cities from a body camera perspective. And really what we recognized early on was that it's not just about the devices, it's about the ecosystem you build and the services you build to run it. And so at the center of that is really our Axon Cloud, which is the services that power all of our devices, and it connects our people, our devices, and all of our applications, and ultimately lets our customers operate with confidence and action out in the field, all the way from capture to the court and the community. And so the cloud is at the center, and we made it a decision early on, and it was a crazy decision in 2011 that we were going to go cloud. And we used to have an on-prem digital evidence management solution, and ultimately decided we're making the bet to go cloud. And in 2011, we did it. And so that shapes the basis of the Axon network and really the company's history. And so our transformation of the cloud and movement to the cloud is really about building trust with our customers. And I'm going to talk about really 4 key challenges that we've had to embark on for us to really shape the direction of really the Axon network. The first one is really incorporating a service DNA. And what I mean by that is, like, as a company, we were a great devices company. We built a taser device that was focused on neuromuscular incapacitation, super effective. We were able to build 5 generations of cameras, but we needed to infuse our culture and our company with a level of service DNA. And what that really means 2 things, and I'll get to them, but the net is that you have all these devices out on the field, but that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. And when you look below the surface, really what you have is a data workflow problem. Given the amount of data that's captured on these devices on a daily basis, is just incredible. An officer in an individual month, at HD quality video can generate somewhere between 300 and 500 gigabytes of video. And that is a mountain of data that really our customers were not prepared to handle. And so for us, it was about how do we architect a service that we would not only build, but also run and operate on a daily basis. So ultimately, the Axon Cloud, and we call evidence.com, is a SaaS-based application. And so we don't just build and engineer the product and the application and then ship it. We actually run it on a daily basis. And so that's the first part of our transformation. The second part is really this consumerization of the IT experience. And so we get to have these great phones where we do all our banking, all our communication. Well, law enforcement is 5 to 10 years behind when it comes to using similar consumer level productivity tools. Looks like that is having a problem there. So I don't know if you can fix the slide there, but so the net is that the consumerization of the IT has, the law enforcement's 5 to 10 years behind, and the net effect is like having an elegant, delightful user interface is not something they face. So for us as a company, really the core goal is to have an experience that's really transforms that public safety experience and gets the product out of the way and allows you to interact, or the law enforcement customer to interact directly with the community. Because really, at the end of the day, it's the relationships that matter and not the technology. So the goal is to get the technology out of the way. So for us, about the DNA, it's about building a strong team. And that's why we picked Seattle, because it's the center of cloud, the center of SaaS. And we wanted to build and grow an office here. So we're in our 4th year. We have about 120 going on about 150 or more over the course of the next year. And so, and we're just getting started. We get about a petabyte of data every 30 days. And this is early days. Our cloud network is certainly growing, and that's been one of the DNA, and evolving the DNA of the company has been one of our big challenges. So I'll talk a little bit next about the second thing, which is a cloud of uncertainty, which is really about the customer's concerns about why cloud may or may not be right for them. And so really it starts off with that data tsunami of them not having the expertise, the applications, or the infrastructure to deal with all the data that they would get on a daily basis. Imagine that 300 to 500 gigabytes of data coming from those cameras, completely difficult for a traditional sort of city or IT shop to handle. And oftentimes the big challenges that we faced was, that these are like top cloud objections, right? We've heard them before. We've talked about them today. It's cost, security, data portability. And the unique one here for us is really about redaction and public disclosure. And this is, as referenced by Seattle Police Department, they say for every 1 hour of video that they capture, it takes 8 hours of time to redact it and make it ready for public release or public viewing. And that's because the data privacy laws require that every single face or personally identifiable information be removed for it before it's shared with the public. Those are the types of challenges that our customers are facing when they take on body cameras and ultimately all the data and video that comes with it. And so for us, it started by building a really intelligent system and workflow that was focused on really 3 things. Number one is a workflow. If you all have used a GoPro at home, you take these great pictures, these great videos, but it's completely crazy to try to figure out how to get it off the camera and actually into a workable application and make something of it. And so for us, creating a dock and go workflow that was seamless was all about reducing time spent, which meant ROI. And second, making that data manageable so it's easy to find, easy to set access control on, easy to move it through the chain of custody, because it's not just the officers in the field that interact with that data. It's the people in the records division. It's the people in the legal department. It's the community that would need to get access to all that data. And ultimately, we're dealing with some of the most sensitive data around, and so it needs to be secure. And so starting off as a basis for us is like actually having a core product was critical before we talked to our customers about selling the benefits of the cloud. And we talked about a couple of these benefits already today, so I won't belabor it. But the net here is that you've got economies of scale and availability. Those are like great checkboxes that you can just transfer those responsibilities over to us as a SaaS provider, and that we provide an update velocity here. And Joe talked about this, is that we're pushing service updates every 30 days. And all of our customers are benefiting those. So if LAPD comes to us and says, hey, we want this feature to do this, or we want this feature to do that, we can quickly turn those around, and every customer within the network benefits. And it's about openness and portability, and making sure they know that it's their data is their data, and they can take it in, put it in, and take it out as they please. And so really what this was about for us was about moving from a really devices company to a services company meant we completely had to change how we sell. We had to hire a brand new sales force that understood how to sell technology to the CIO, to the IT department, because traditionally us as a company, we'd been selling operational equipment or weapons to command staff. And so it expanded the target group that we were selling to, which meant we really had to evolve how we talked about what we were selling, and really how we were educating our sales force, and making sure that we put our engineers and our technical people out in front as they talk to key CIOs and key directors of IT. But it didn't stop there, because we had to figure out, well, how do we continue to build trust with our customers? And these next two areas are probably the biggest areas for us where we spent the most time, because security is our priority. And really, 4 years ago, the question was, why cloud? Cloud isn't as secure as on-prem, which we've had to spend many, many early years dispelling those myths of why cloud is more secure, whether it be physical or logical security, to now security being one of the primary reasons why our customers are choosing to go with our services and SaaS-based cloud services. And so we look at security in layers. And the key thing here is there's a couple layers. So we use infrastructure as a service. And then on top of that, we layer on the application. And we break down each of those into the three categories of people, products, and practices. And so I'll talk first about our application, and then I'll talk about cloud provider selection and how we've had to think through how we globalize our services across the world. And I talked a little bit about people in the DNA, so I'll focus on products and practices. First, when we talk about our product, we have to have our application security fundamentals just spot on. And so making sure we have a story around encryption and transit at rest, key management, how we handle IAM, identity and account management, how that includes things like SAML and provisioning, deprovisioning through SCIM and things like that, directory reflection, audit trails, and access control. These are just the basics of how we as an application provider think about delivering SaaS to our customers. And so it starts there, but it moves into demonstrated compliance. So like, how do we stand up a team or group of people that are actually responsible for, we just don't say that we're compliant, but we demonstrate compliance through the things that we do, through our, having a mature vulnerability management program, setting up a SOC to, Splunk monitor all the logs from inside the network, as well as having a WAF and various different tools to make sure that we're providing the best security posture or defense in depth. And then ultimately making sure that we follow through on those practices. And this is all at the application layer. And that's the critical thing for us, is that we not only say that we have to have compliance at an infrastructure level, infrastructure as a service with the cloud provider you choose, but given the nature of our data, our application has to have security through and through, and that we will also go through that same set of compliances, the basics of having a trustworthy platform. And so these are the various certifications and compliances that we have go through at the application level. And we just don't rely on our cloud provider to say, yes, we're ISO 27001 or SOC 2 or C-Star level 2. We go through those ourselves. It's a costly investment, but a really critical one for the nature of our data. So really the challenges that we face is around lagging policy. And really quickly here, the bottom line is that there's 18,000 different law enforcement agencies. And the policy that's in place, it's called CJIS, the Criminal Justice Information Systems. It's run by the FBI. It hasn't evolved to support cloud policy, a cloud-first mindset. And so state and local agencies say they want background checks. They want to actually go through and do a data center audit. That's physically going to an Azure or an AWS data center, making sure that the security, the physical security is legitimate. And by the way, that has to be state by state, and that has to be each agency can say, oh yes, we want a separate background check. And so our information security team has gone through and created a process where we now sign agreements with every state that attest to all those things that we've created from a trust level. So that lagging policy, we are involved both at a state, local, and federal level to make sure that we're establishing trust with our customers, but also evolving policy to be supportive of cloud and letting our customers more easily make the decision to move to the cloud and get all these benefits of workflow, data management, security. And ultimately, it's a conversation about risk, understanding, having customer empathy, and taking that risk and through the trust that we've established, transfer that risk to us through a partnership, and ultimately provide assurance at the end of the day that we do what we say we will, and that ultimately we say we'll never let our customers fail. So second part of this is about going global, and that's the lower level of the infrastructure as a service. So as a global company, we work with police in London, Australia, various other parts of Europe, Canada, Latin America. And so for us, making a selection about an infrastructure and cloud provider is a really complex one. And we have really three major hurdles. The first one is policy, because every country has their equivalent policy of CJIS. Sometimes it's well documented, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's just nationalistic. And so we are faced with trying to discover some of these different policies about what are these objections that customers outside the US face. Get a lot of questions about the Patriot Act and the ability of us to how we might manage that data. How do we conduct our security and operations outside the United States? And that's both for the application level as well as the infrastructure level. So if we're dealing with a cloud provider like Amazon and they have hands-on data, who's getting background checked, who has access, what's the access control mechanism. All those things are fair game and discussions and are a very complex process. So ultimately, we had to pick and figure out a cloud provider selection methodology that really helped us go to market. And really, there's four key things. One, it's about there's what I say is not all cloud providers are created equal. There's the basics of you got to get the technology right. It's got to be easy for your engineers to develop on efficiently, have the right, the basic building blocks. But in a way, because we have to be across multiple cloud providers, we've had to be agnostic, and we can't use some of the higher level services, so we're just basically using compute, storage, networking, maybe a few other higher level services. Second is you got to figure out global availability. Azure's going to South Africa. That's big for us. South Africa has 250,000 police officers. The big target market for us, and so we look for our hyperscale cloud providers to be in region or close to region and have a story around how are they going to do security and compliance? How are they going to partner with us to work through that? And then on the sales and marketing front, are we walking arm in arm to the CIO of a city in Germany and getting an introduction? And so we look at how we select these cloud providers along these four different lines. So right now, for us as a company, we have 10 global instances of our service. We work with police services around the world and deal with some of the most sensitive data. So what does the next 10 years look like in policing? And I think to break that down, to talk about it in two ways. So law enforcement and officers in the field have really two jobs. The first one is engaging with the community, building trust, and keeping the public safe. And the second one is paperwork. And that's job number two. And that's where technology can come in. And right now, officers are spending nearly 80% of their time on paperwork. And that's a ripe opportunity for AI to come in and help really automate the mundane tasks, not make decisions for officers, but ultimately bring together cloud, these connected devices, Internet of Things, and AI to really transform public safety to where all these sensors are capturing information and helping provide information real time, but also documenting what's happened at a given incident. And so the goal is to use AI to accelerate the many, many mundane tasks that happen in a day to enable officers to spend more time on job number one, which is building trust and creating transparency and creating safer communities. And really, that's our next 10 years, is to focus on how do we take all the sensors in the field, whether it be data from a taser, data from a camera, data from another device, to really tell a story of what's happened at a given incident. And so there's really a number of key opportunities for machine learning and law enforcement. And I'll just spend time on two of these. One is redaction. And so I talked a little bit about Seattle PD and their focus around 1 hour for every 8 hours of video. investments in vision and language can help. That's computer vision, processing of images and video for information to be able to identify and redact faces. That will help efficiently allow agencies that collect body camera video evidence and get it out to the public faster. As soon as you can get that out to the public faster, that's an opportunity to build trust. And that FOIA process can be much more efficient. Some of you may have seen articles in the region here about Tim Clemens, who's been requesting footage. We in Washington have significant open laws that enable us as community members to go and ask for information. And so the core fundamentals of machine learning and data analysis will allow us to do things like redact and provide information faster, and that's our focus from our goal as building the Axon network to really create seamless data flow from capture to community. So where we are today, we have some really awesome momentum. We changed our name 2 months ago from Taser to Axon because our goal as a company is much broader than just the devices we create. Our goal is to build a network of services that help customers operate with confidence and action, ultimately build safer communities. And so we're Axon, we're here in Seattle, and we're certainly hiring. And I say the last thing, if you haven't got one yet, I'll tell you a quick story. 2 weeks ago, my son comes to me and he says, "Hey, Dad, let's go buy a fidget spinner." And I'm like, "What's a fidget spinner?" Because I've heard of fidget cubes. And so he pointed it out on Amazon. We went and grabbed it. And I was like, "Oh, wow, what are these?" And I didn't realize that they were all the rage. And so we had to get some fidget spinners at Axon. We have them here for you. So if you have kids or you want one yourself, go grab one. They're the coolest thing ever. And they spin and they take your time. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming. We're excited to be here and certainly delighted to be a sponsor of the first event. Thanks.